to say is that when it comes to business, one of the things that you want to sit down and look at is that you want to try and look for an area of need. You want to look for an area of need. Also, secondly, sometimes you don't have to do anything new. You can even look at what some other people are already doing. Maybe sales of bags of shoes, or sales of clothes or things like that, and then you can look at it. The other thing that you can also do is that your current area of expertise. So for example, I'm into sales. One of the things that I'm doing on the side is I'm writing a book as well. And part of my plan is that, because I do, sales training, so part of my plan is also to start selling the book as well, which is in my area of expertise, which is what I already do. So putting the knowledge that I have into a book and then putting that out for sale is part of the things that I'm doing. So you can look at your skill. What are you currently doing? Maybe you are into fashion designing. You can write a book on fashion designing. Maybe you are currently working somewhere as a baker. You're baking. You can write something, or you can write a cookery book. Maybe you're working somewhere, or they are doing stuff relating to sustainability or eco-friendly stuff. You can write something related to eco-friendliness that you can sell as well. So you can look at your area of training, and then you can begin to put down something in that area, and you can turn that into a book. Likewise, you can also turn that into a training. So for example, if you're someone that is also into fashion design, for example, you can do training for people that want to become fashion designers. So that is another thing that you can look at when you want to look at ideas that you can, start with. So you can look at existing business that people are doing, or you can think about something as an area of need in your environment. Maybe you realize that in your environment, let's say, for example, there are lots of kids that, you can start tutorials for. So there was a time I used to do tutorial business, and I used to hire people, I used to get jobs. So I get jobs and I hire like lots of university students and people in like teaching like FC, Yabatech, Unilag, and I used to hire them and give them jobs, so I'll get people who are interested in, in bringing their kids, who need tutorial services for their kids, and I connect them to some of the teachers that I've employed, so you can look at that as a service. There was also another time I used to do laundry business, so I realized that when I was in Unilag, I remember that, a lot of students were living like in off campus and in BQs, and a lot of them, always, like have all those big boys who had money. And so we used to do laundry services for them. We go there, we just, try and market to them in that area, and we get their clothes. We used to hire some of the ladies in the Unilag hostels who used to wash. They will be the ones to wash for us, and then we hire ourselves. That could be something you can look at. So you can look at your environment, look at an area where there is a gap, and you can plug into it. So those are things that you can look at. And you can also look at sales as well. So maybe you want to start selling shoes, you want to start selling bags, you want to become a middleman. Maybe you go to the market at Yaba, or you go to the market in Lagos Island, you buy some clothes. Maybe you have fellow students, you buy some clothes, or you could even have somebody in the market there that can send you pictures of the clothes that they have in their store. You get those pictures, you take it to some of your students in school, you show it to them, and when they are interested in buying, you can then go into the market and buy. So that is also something that you can look at. So I'm just giving different ideas of things that you can look at based on the problems that you see in your environment. Likewise, another thing that you can do, you can act as a middleman. So for example, a lot of people that are into real estate, for example, you see somebody that acts as a real estate agent, and all he's just doing that is just the middleman. He's probably going to join a real estate group, get information about properties, people who need, who want to rent houses and all that. And he just connects the agent and the person who needs a house, and he gets his commission. So you can even be a middleman, and you're earning your commission just by doing that. So I've just shared a couple. So for people who are thinking about ideas that you want to do, things you want to do to get started in business, these are some of the things, that you can look at. Look at an existing thing that people are doing, you can mimic it. Look at the need in your environment and try and see how you can provide solutions to it. Look at your existing area of skill or training and try and see how you can come up with like a book or you come up with a training in it. So these are things that I think, we can all look at for those that are looking at things that they want to do. I don't know if this has been helpful for anybody so far. If it has been helpful, let me just see an emoji from you, as we go on into the other phase of the training. Any other person? I don't know if it's been helpful. Okay. So just very quickly, I think I'm to speak on, so this would actually be a topic that would benefit a lot more people who actually maybe started something. And even if you've not started something, it can still be relevant. So it's about how you can build a team, even if you don't really have a lot of money, how you can build a team that can help you in making your business more effective. One of the challenges that we have about in business is that a lot of times, a lot of businesses remain small because a lot of business owners don't know how to grow the business. A lot of business owners continue to work in the business and don't think about how that business can grow. That is one of the big challenges that we see with businesses. And that's why you see that a lot of businesses will remain small for a long time because we are not actually thinking about bringing people on board, who can help make the business seamless. One of the things that I used to say to people is that sometimes, do you know that 10% of 1 million naira is better than 0% of 100K? So what do I mean? You're doing a business and by virtue of maybe you having, for example, maybe having partnership with somebody, or maybe you bringing somebody on board who's got an expertise in an area that can help your business grow. Instead of you bringing that person on board, but because sometimes we want to take all the profit, we don't do that. So a lot of times you see that a lot of us will start business and the business might be struggling because we want to be the only one taking all the profit. And in the world where we live in now, partnership and ability to, to leverage on other people's skills and talent is one of the things that is driving business growth. If you do a lot of research about tech startups, a lot of the tech startups that you see, one of the things that you regularly hear is about, you find out is that a lot of tech startups is either you have two people who have started the business, one person is good in the tech, the other person is good in the business side of it. And one of the things that a lot of tech startups try to do is that as the business continues to grow, they try and see how they can scale it up. Scale it up means that how do we get a lot of more funds so that we can hire more people, so that this product can get to the hands of more people, and by the end of the day, we can make more money. If you've heard of Flutterwave, heard of Andela, you heard of Paystack, a lot of some of these companies, these are the ways by which they started. Even Money Point and some of these companies that you see, these are some of the ways by which a lot of these guys have actually done it. So for us who are maybe small business owners, one of the things that will be very important. So at the early stage as a business owner, so you start a business, let me just use a typical example, somebody who is selling laptop. At the initial stage, when you start that business, or if you are running that kind of business, you will be the same person who is the procurement person. So you are the one going to buy the laptop and going to, deliver. You'll be the salesperson. You are the one, trying to get customers. You'll be the marketer. You'll be the one trying to do hard, trying to promote. You'll be the operations person. You'll be the one trying to do the packaging, try to do the inventory. You will also be the same person who is the customer service person. So most times when you start a business, you are the one that is everything, there's no problem with that, right? There's no problem with that, because one of the things that is important at that stage is that you want to ensure that this is a business that is profitable first before you even think about partnering or bringing somebody on board. So at that phase, what is more important when you say start a business is ability to generate consistent sales. So for anyone that is starting a business, one of my important, the important that I say is that at this initial stage, if it's only you, what is more important is ability for you to generate consistent sales. So ability for you to start the business and you have customers and people start to patronize you, and not just patronize you once, but patronize you, let's say in a week, you get 5 orders, 6 orders, 7 orders, 10 orders. That is what is more important at the initial stage when you start a business, before you even talk about even bringing somebody in. So as a small business owner, that is your core important, goal. So at that phase, like I was saying, you are the one who is everything. You are the one who is the salesperson. You are the one who is the marketing person. You are the one who is the procurement. You are the one who is the customer service, which there's no problem with that. So when you at that phase, when you first start, if you want to now begin to structure the business such that, the business can start to have some processes that can begin to, run smoothly, even if, let's say, you now want to think about bringing somebody on board. What is now important is that, what is important is that you have to start documenting everything that you do. So this is what I mean. So if you start a business, like you're saying, selling laptop, it's important that, so you document, you say, okay, what do I used to do? I buy the laptop from XYZ shop. And what I do, I stock it up in my shop. I buy 2 laptops every week and I keep it in the shop. I promote every Wednesday and Thursday. Then after promotion, or maybe on Wednesday, all the people that have bought from me before, I reach out to them. So I'm just saying, you document the things that you do normally. Have it down. Now, after that phase, when you've documented the things that you do normally, you can now create it like a standard operating procedure. So what do I mean? You can now, note it down as, oops, what we do is that every Monday we promote online. Every Tuesday, market to buy stock. Every Wednesday, we call all our previous customers that have bought from us. Every Thursday, you have that written down as your operating procedure. Now, what that is doing for you is that as any day, any time you decide to say you want to bring somebody on board, you already have what you do that the person can come and sit down with. But before we get there, like I said, when you start the business, what is more important is ability to generate consistent sales. And sales in this place, and I'm sure maybe Olata probably maybe yesterday when you might have spoken a bit to it. But there's a whole lot of things that you have to do to generate sales. You have to consistently market. And this is one thing that a lot of business owners don't really do. We think that marketing is just one-off. The truth is that if you want to consistently generate sales, you must be marketing consistently. You might even need to have like a marketing budget, because without people seeing the product, they won't come. Then, so before you even market, so you have to identify who are the people that you want to be selling to. Where are they located? If they are online, if they are offline, okay. So what do you do every week that is part of your SOP to be able to be reaching those people? Maybe you run ads consistently, maybe once every week. Maybe once every week as well, you go and share flyer in a particular location. Maybe once every week as well, maybe you try and go to, maybe if it's students that are targeting, you go to some of, maybe the classes where the students are located, and you try and see how you can paste some of your product, paste some of your, advertise some of your services there, or you can, talk to them and just say, or maybe there are events that the people that you're trying to target always attend. And you can also be a part of maybe going to advertise at that event. Maybe They might ask you to pay a fee or something. I'm just saying. But you need to identify where are the people that are your target market? Where are they located? If they are online, like I said, online presence is very important. Have the marketing budget. So if it's weekly, you do it. If it's once in 2 weeks, let that be consistent. Because the way marketing works or sales work is that the more the number of people that see your product, the more chances you have people that will come and buy. If people are not seeing what you are selling, the less chances that you will sell. So sales is a game of number, because the way we do sales is that if you want to target one person, you reach out to, the way I do it, if I want one person to buy, I reach out to a minimum of 10 persons, because that is the game. So if you want 3 customers, you target 30 people. You understand? Sometimes it might even be more than that. But I'm just saying that, so if you're not reaching people and you're expecting people to come and buy, then it won't work, because sales is a numbers game. So that is what marketing does for you. And that is why I said consistently, your marketing has to be consistent to the people that you want to sell to. That has to be captured in your process. That has to be captured in your process. Are we still following me? Are we still here? Have I lost us? Can I get an emoji from us if we're still here? I just need to be sure that we are still here. Chidinma, Timilane, okay. All right. So that's that. So I now said, so as a business owner, that is the first important thing that you need to first. So averagely, before you even start talking of bringing somebody on board, maybe as a volunteer, maybe somebody that you want to start paying, for example, I'm just even saying, averagely, you need to be having at least between 8 and 12 sales per week. And that is even depending on the product that you are selling. Sometimes that might even be averagely what you should be having per day. So if you have not started eating at least 12 sales per week, I wouldn't advise anybody to even think about hiring anybody, except maybe you want to bring the person in as a volunteer or as a partner. But if you are not eating 12 sales per week, averagely, for example, there is really no point of you talking about bringing somebody to come and work for you. But it also now depends on what you're also doing. If it's a service that maybe is a product that maybe you always have, you get, maybe it's like a project, you get like lots of, maybe for example, you get a contract, they give you a contract of like 5 million, 10 million, and you need to deliver in a short day. You might need to quickly get people in as contract just to come and help you on that thing. So sometimes you need to do that. But if you're talking about somebody that you want to be doing things for you consistently, my advice is always, if you are not eating an average of 12 customers per week, there is no point doing that. Because until you are able to consistently generate sales, there is no need to think about saying you want to bring somebody. Except in the case of what I said, if you get a contract that is a big value and you need to deliver, for example, a tailor, they tell you to sew 1,000 pieces of school uniform, or they tell you to sew 2,000 pieces of uniform for factory staff, and you need to deliver that in 1 week. In that case, you need to bring in other people to work for you on a contract basis. So that is a different thing, and that's something that some of us also should begin to think about. Sometimes, some of us, you might even get, people might even ask you that, okay, I want to give you this job, I want to give you this contract. But because some of us, the way we think that because we can't do it, we reject it. Now, I'm saying this, even as a small business owner, if peradventure, maybe you manage to get a deal, somebody now says, oh, we want to give you this job, and we need you to be able to do this quantity, and it's more than what you normally do. You need to seek for help and get people to come and help in that situation. Do you understand? Even if you don't currently have that product, or you are not being able to deliver that, you understand? You need to bring in, it's better to share that money and have people, like I said, better to get 10% of 10 million than to get 0% of nothing. So sometimes that kind of project comes in, be open-minded to call for help. Do you understand? Be open-minded to call for help. So it might just be that they'll just be volunteer contracts in that situation. But like I said, if you want to move into a case where you are not able to build and get, maybe you want to start hiring a team, you want to start scaling up. What my advice is that you need to start generating sales, at least 12 sales in a week. So once you start hitting that number, one of the things that I would then advise is that you can then begin to look at maybe bringing in somebody. It could be part-time. And what is the person going to do? Maybe like an operations assistant or maybe a social media assistant. So depending on what you want to achieve, if you're already eating 12 sales per week by yourself, at that instance, one of the things that you might need to look at is that maybe you want to have like an operations assistant. And maybe what the person could be doing for you is that maybe the person is helping you with packaging and shipping. Maybe the person is helping you to respond to customer queries. Maybe the person is helping you to go and deliver laptops. And maybe the person is helping you to keep records at that point. Because, the workload might start becoming more. For example, I have a friend who has a fashion store, somewhere in the island. And, yeah, he used to get lots of orders as well. Like in a day, he gets like 2-3 orders, so in a week, he was hitting that number as well. He had to, hire somebody, who was like an assistant to him. What the lady was just doing, that the lady used to help respond to, the customer queries. And sometimes, maybe she might help with delivery, but that's not, what she primarily does. Maybe respond to customer delivery queries and all that. So that was what he did, at that initial phase. And so that's something that can happen as you begin to hit that number in your sales. So, like I said, you have to consistently get sales before you move into that level. And when you get into that level, you get somebody in maybe part-time or full-time. Then the other thing that is also important in building your team is that you have to look for, people. So for every one of us here, one of the important areas, as a salesperson, I've always known, sales is the blood life of every business. If you are not selling, there's no business. So if you are even considering to have a team or some people that you want to work with, one of the critical areas is either somebody that is good at marketing or social media, for example, that can help you to scale the business, because that is what is more important. And one of the things that I want to say is that rather than sometimes, even if you don't have the funds, there might be a need for you to even partner with somebody of that nature, or it could even be on a contract basis. Maybe you want to promote your business and you don't have the funds. You could go to someone and say, okay, for every business you bring in for me, I'm going to give you XYZ amount. That could be another way to scale. Because not every time that you have to say you want to pay somebody, sometimes you might have to do it based on commission basis, based on the business that the person is bringing for you. That is another way to actually scale. So I'm going to stop here because I believe that this topic is if I need to go deep into it, it's going to be a lot more relevant to a lot of people who are already doing stuff and are looking at scaling. But I will stop here and I will take questions from us at this point. Right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. We sincerely appreciate all that you've shared with us. And of course, we have rather so many questions in place we want to ask. Yeah. So, well, the floor is now open to everyone to ask whatever question that they have as regards the wonderful session that we just have from Mr. Tulu Olashumo. So we all can start asking our question now. No, should in case you are in a place where you can't speak or something, you can actually put your question in the chat box.
All right, Richard.
Awesome, sir. Thank you so much for the teaching and for everything. Like everything just makes perfect sense and it's very logical. I would like to know if someone is would you would you advise someone to focus on just one product or um gather as much product as possible when someone is starting an online store? So
So,
am I allowed to talk about the details of what I'm building?
um, I mean, you might. I don't know if it is ideal for you. Or you want to keep it confidential until it comes
Oh,
out. Yeah, but you could just use scenario. Maybe you can use like different scenarios to paint the picture.
okay. Uh, it so the plan is to make sure that to start a store that sells fairly used goods as cheap as possible to make them as cheap as possible for people looking for cheap things. So the name of the business is Thrifty. I already have the domain and I'm building the website. So something like that, when someone hears something like that, they think it's just a store for clothes, used clothes. But I'm thinking of going in the route of like foreign used items and different things, everything combined together. But I've been thinking, is it better to just specialize on just clothes or like touch everything as long as it is cheap and affordable?
So I think the first thing we want is to define the model. What model do you want to? So their website, for example, I know websites that do um fairly used stuff, but largely they do almost all the range. So some could even do furnitures, some could even do clothes, some could do shoes, some could do bags. They do like anything fairly used,
Yeah.
right? Why there are some that they just focus on maybe clothes, for example. But that's also because of the model that they are trying to run, right? So, for example, the one that I said maybe they do clothes, for example, I think one of the things that they do is that on that site, once somebody is interested, the person who is selling will take that product, maybe like the clothes, to the post office, and they will post it. The delivery charge and everything is called person pay for delivery charge. They will post it to the person, but that is because it's a small product that is easily to pack, right? Maybe like clothes and things. But the person that is doing the ones that they are doing everything that I know, what they do is that they allow the buyer and the seller to interact. So they arrange delivery among themselves. So the buyer will say, okay, sorry, I can't deliver, I can't give you this thing I can't bring it to you for free. Come to my house and pick it up. Because maybe it's like a furniture, maybe do you understand? So these ones make it open. You get, but because they are selling everything and anything, you understand? But the other ones, they try and regulate it a bit. They ensure that okay, even before the person paying will pay on their website. They will ensure that the product gets to them first before they release the money. That kind of a thing. But whereas this other one is a bit open. You understand? They make it a bit open. So I'm just saying that. So it now depends on the model, right? To say what model do you want to run? If you think that starting up, so it's just that starting up, one of the advice would be you start with what you can control, right? That's just the advice. Do you get? You might not be able to fully, do you get my point, and do that large scale, thing. You understand my point? So
Yeah.
you might want to start small. But like I said, it also depends on the model. So if you now want to run a model where your plan is maybe later on, you're going to go for fund, seek for funding, like the Series A funding, like angel investors, like venture capitalists and things like that. At those phases, then you might now be looking at scaling it up a bit. Do you get? These are the things that might not happen. But at the initial phase, I think what I would just say is that start with the simplest form of it. You understand? Maybe the product that moves the most, maybe clothes. Do you understand? Maybe clothes and shoes and those kind of things. Then as time goes on, you can now begin to scale into other things. I don't know if it helps.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Is there any other person with any question?